Thank you for joining Wars of the Rosies as we continue with part 10, the Arthurian Cycle, from Orders of the Quest The Holy Grail by Manly P. Hall. The Arthurian Cycle. Walter Mapps, or Mappies, who died about 1209 at an advanced age, was the outstanding English literator and humorist at the court of King Henry II. From the meager records of his life, he seems to have been, at least indirectly, associated with the troubadours. He is often referred to as an ecclesiastic, and certainly held several benefices, but there is no direct record of his ordination. At one time, Mapp was clerk of the royal household and justice itinerant. He studied in Paris, attended the Lateran Council at Rome, and traveled extensively. Although it is believed that Mapp was responsible for linking the legend of King Arthur with the Grail Cycle, cautious researchers are inclined to question the popular account. The justice itinerant was a busy man, and it is quite possible that such lengthy and involved legends as Lancelot, Mort Artus, and the Questi were the productions of a group rather than an individual. It appears likely, however, that Walter Mapp was responsible for the transplanting of certain romances of chivalry from the continent to the British Isles, and mingling them with the streams of English folklore. The Arthurian Cycle begins with Merlin. Merlin the Wise, Merlin the Wild, Merlin the Bard, Merlin the Mad. Dr. S. Humphreys Gertine, in introducing the character of Merlin, writes, "In point of time, he appears upon the stage long before King Arthur. His famous exploits, reaching back even to the reign of Vortigern. He also represents the intellect of the world as depicted in these poems, while Arthur represents simply its physical force. It is to the necromantic skill and wise counsels of Merlin that the king owes his birth, his crown, his order of round table knights, and his victories. It is Merlin who, as court prophet and counselor, predicts the grandest events in the life of his sovereign, and without whose advice no affair of moment is undertaken. When Arthur was born, he was wrapped in cloth of gold, and in fulfillment of an oath made by his father, Uther was taken to the gate of the castle and given into the keeping of Merlin. Arthur did not appear again in the legend until Uther, on his deathbed, acknowledged his son and recommended him to the barons as their rightful king. When the proper time came, Merlin, by his magic, caused to appear in the Cathedral Church of London, before the high altar, a large stone with an anvil of steel upon it, and a sword thrust into the anvil. Beneath, in letters of gold, was the inscription, "Whoso pulleth out this sword of this stone and anvil is rightwise king born of England." Only Arthur could draw forth the sword, in this way proving his right to succession. We are reminded of Nothung, the sword of the Volsungs, which Odin thrust into the oak, and which only Sigmund could draw from the tree. The sword trowel represents the release of the will from bondage to the material elements, signified by the anvil and the stone. Parallels in other esoteric traditions indicate that the test of the sword symbolizes initiation. Most interpreters of the Arthurian Cycle assume that it was derived by bards and troubadours merely for the entertainment of high lords and ladies. Even those who acknowledge the possibility that the legends of Charlemagne and his 12 paladins may have been transferred to the British clime have not sensed any serious purpose behind the circumstance. It is so easy to be deceived by the obvious, especially when the historian has no sympathy for the esoteric tradition. Arthur ruled over a court of heroes, much as Odin, the all-father of the Drots, presided at the council of the 12 Asses in the great court of Asgard. Of the 9 worthies was this worthy one. Denmark and Norway did obey his throne. In 12 battles he the Saxon beat, great and to make his victories more great. The faithless Saracens he overcame, and made them honor high Jehovah's name. The noble order of the Round Table, at Winchester his first invention found, whilst he behind sea fought to win renown. His nephew Mordred did usurp his crown, but he returned and Mordred did confound. And in the fight, great Arthur got a wound, that proud so mortal, that immortality. It made him live, although it made him die. Full 15 years the diadem he wore, and every day gained honor more and more. Arthur the Great was buried at Glasbury, from a memorial of monarchs. King Arthur. King Arthur, like Siegfried, emerges as a type of the culture hero. As Hercules performed 12 labors, so Arthur fought 12 battles in the service of God and Britain. He was betrayed by one of his trusted knights, as Odin perished with his Asses on the plains of Ragnar. So Arthur and most of his knights fell at the Battle of Camlan. With the hero perished the great order of the quest. The Morte d'Arthur describes the passing of the king, and how his body was bore away to Avalon on a black ship. Arthur was crowned King of Britain AD 516, and he died AD 542. In the 41st year of his life. On the field of Camlan, the forces of light and darkness perished together, and the whole story is a thinly veiled account of the fall of the pagan mysteries. From the Arthurian epic, a diagrammatic arrangement of the Arthurian epic Cyclus, according to the narrative of the Anglo-Norman Travers. Gertine includes in his work a diagram of the Arthurian epic Cyclus, according to the narrative of the Anglo-Norman Travers. The figure is so important that we reproduce it herewith. The identification of Merlin with the intellect of the world is a simple and direct key to the Neoplatonism and Gnosticism underlying this entire cycle of legend symbolism. It will be seen from the diagram that an order of spiritual descent begins with Merlin, passes to Arthur, and is consummated in the maiden knight Galahad. A parallel is found in the cycle of Grail Knights, Titharel, Amfortas, and Parzival, and in the Gothic descent of Odin, Sigmund, and Siegfried. Lancelot du Lac was the foster son of Vivian, a nymph. She may be the same as the mysterious Lady of the Lake, who gave Arthur the sword Excalibur, which had been fashioned for him by Merlin in his subterranean forge. Lancelot, like Sigmund, was unable to accomplish the quest of the Grail because of his sin against the sanctity of marriage. Like Sigmund also, he became the father of a spiritual hero, in this case Galahad. We cannot examine in detail the entire cycle, but if we understand Merlin to be the world mind and Arthur the world form, then Galahad becomes the world soul, and the legend unfolds its cosmic content. Arthur himself never attempted the quest of the Grail, but through his knighthood of the Round Table, which Merlin had devised and over which the king presided as Grand Master, the accomplishment of the Grail quest by 4 holy knights was possible. Thus the Round Table becomes the material universe itself, ruled by the Demiurgus, the Greek Zeus, presiding over the circle of divinities, the 12 great gods of Olympus. Merlin is Kronos, and Galahad is Dionysus. In the esoteric hierarchy, Merlin is the secret doctrine, Arthur the formal structure of the mystery schools, and Galahad the adept, in whose person the mystery of the redemption is revealed. From the Rosicrucians by Hargrave Jennings. The Round Table of King Arthur, generally referred to as Winchester's Top Table. A top table, supposed to be the Round Table of King Arthur, is preserved in the courthouse in the castle at Winchester, and was reported by Hargrave Jennings in the Rosicrucians, Their Rites and Mysteries. Like most relics of the mysteries, this top table is of unknown origin and uncertain descent. Jennings describes his drawing thus: by tradition, the Round Table of King Arthur devolves from the very earliest period. This illustration was copied from the original with great care and attention. King Arthur, in the principal seat, is idolized in the person of King Henry VIII, in whose time the Round Table was supposed to have been repaired and refaced. In the Revolution, Cromwell's soldiery, after the capture of Winchester, and in the fury at the imputed ideal of idolatry, the Round Table is the English Palladium, made a target of it. The marks of many balls are still conspicuous. The center of the Winchester tabletop is ornamented with a large heraldic rose of the conventional form associated with the House of Tudor. There are places for 24 knights arranged in pairs, and a double throne for the Grand Master and the mysterious unknown knight, or adept, who is worthy to sit in the Siege Perilous. Like the tomb of Father C.R.C., Arthur's Round Table is a microcosm or mirror of the universe. The knights meet annually at Windsor, Winchester, Camelot, or Caerleon to celebrate the Pentecost. So exalted were these sanctified champions of the code of chivalry that not one could be given a seat above another. For this reason, a circular table was constructed and dedicated to the Grail quest. The table itself had magical powers and could enlarge its own size as the number of the virtuous increased. The number of persons who could be seated at the table differs in the several accounts. One writer says 1,500, another 150. The Winchester table seated 26, but in the old records, the original had space for 32, including the throne of the king, and the Siege Perilous. 32 chairs plus the Grail throne in the middle would give the highly significant number 33. Here is a possible Masonic intimation of 32 degrees earned and one bestowed by the grace of God. In one version of the legend, Merlin refers to the Round Table as the original board at which Jesus ate and drank with his disciples on the occasion of the Last Supper. Its mysteries were revived at the court of Uther Pendragon, from which it passed to Leo de Grance, king of Cameliard, in the tradition preserved by Geoffrey of Monmouth. Arthur's queen, Guinevere, is described as a Roman lady, but she is usually referred to as a lady of Cornwall and daughter of King Leo de Grance. Arthur received the symbolic table on the occasion of his marriage, possibly as part of Guinevere's dowry. All the elements of the story have been intentionally or accidentally confused, but the implications is that the rites of the Round Table had descended directly from the celebration of the Pentecost by Joseph of Arimathea at Glastonbury. Sir Modred, the Judas of the Round Table, was born of an illicit union of Arthur and his own half-sister, Morgause, Queen of Orkney. Arthur did not know that Morgause was of his own blood, but he atoned for his sin by dying at the hand of his wretched and evil offspring, Lancelot, who failed to stand beside his king emperor at the Battle of Camlan, finally died of a broken heart on Arthur's grave. Although the historical Arthur was at best only a British prince, the legends made him conqueror of the world and finally master of the Roman Empire. Symbolically, this is necessary, for Arthur personifies the lord of the material sphere. Materialism is finally destroyed by his own progeny. And of all the circle of the Round Table knights, Galahad alone not only attained the Grail, but was translated to heaven without the mystery of death. From the birth of Sir Mordred, the same note of inevitability tragedy dominated the theme that hung over the Odonic rites, as the body of the dying Arthur was bore away after the Battle of Camlan. It was left for Sir Bedivere to perform the last rituals of the Round Table. He carried the sword Excalibur to the shores of the lake and threw it far out over the water. A hand rose from the deep and, grasping the blade, carried it beneath the waves. The sword is the power of the will, human and divine, which returns to space from which it came in the day that is called the Twilight of the Gods. Lord Tennyson then makes Sir Bedivere cry out, but now the whole Round Table is dissolved. which was an image of the mighty world. There are several accounts of the discovery of the grave of King Arthur. The most authentic of these records are those of Giraldus Cambrensis, who was present on the occasion, and William of Malmesbury, who lived at the time when Henry II visited Wales. He learned from an ancient British bard that King Arthur had been buried at Glastonbury, and that strange pyramid monuments marked the grave. The king approached the monks of the abbey and further told them of a report that the remains of Arthur had been deeply interred, not in a tomb of stone, but in a hollowed oak tree. An excavation was made between two pyramids or columns standing in the cemetery of the abbey. Under a stone was found a leaden cross, which Giraldus says he actually held in his hands. The cross was inscribed with the following words, translated, "Here lies buried the renowned King Arthur, in the island of Avalon." Beneath, at the depth of about 16 feet, a coffin made of a hollowed oak was found, and it contained bones of an unusual size. Giraldus notes that the leg bone was 3 fingers longer than that of the tallest man present. The skull also was large and revealed the marks of 10 wounds. 9 of these had concreted, but the 10th, a large and clean cleft, apparently was the mortal blow. The remains of Guinevere were found on the same occasion, and also those of Modred, Arthur's son and slayer. The bones were removed to the church at Glastonbury at the order of King Edward I, and were placed before the high altar. The king visited the abbey in 1276 and had the shrine of Arthur opened. After viewing the remains, Edward caused the bones to be folded into a magnificent shroud and had them replaced with deep reverence. According to one historian, the 3 bodies were buried in the same tomb, one above the other, with King Arthur beneath the other 2. According to Thomas Gale, Glastonbury was anciently surrounded by marshes and was called the Island of Avalon, that is, the Island of Apples, from the Old British word Avel. When Arthur was stricken by Modred on the field of Camlan, it is reported that he was carried to the Isle of Avalon to be healed of his wounds by Argante the Fair. Gale, quoting Matthew of Paris, says, "We do not know how he died, but as he is said to be buried in the Abbey Church of Glastonbury, with an epitaph in this manner, so we believe him to remain there still, whence the line, 'Here lies Arthur, a king that was, and a king to be.' For some of the race of the Britons believe that he will live again and restore them from a state of servitude to liberty. The epitaph supplies the last and most viral element in the compound of the cultural hero. The hero of the world cannot die. He may retire to his tomb to sleep and to wait, but like Charlemagne and Barbarossa, he will return to lead his people and reestablish the Golden Age. He is always identified with a glorious time long past and a glorious time to come. The culture hero is the personification of the secret hopes and aspirations of the nation which invents him or bestows his qualities upon some historical personage. He is the immortal mortal. He dies many times for his people, and yet by enchantment he forever lives. It will not require a great deal of reflection to discover in the legend of Arthur the conventional form of the adept tradition. The story is finished long before Merlin the Wise had been captured in the spell of Vivian, and no longer guarded the destiny of the Round Table. Out of the threads and remnants of this splendid mystery was fashioned the Order of the Garter, or Garter. In the chapel of St. George, the Knights of Christendom extended and overlapped their sword to form a brilliant star of gleaming steel. Once they had the Black Book, which told the secrets of the divine right of kings. But one day the book vanished from among them. This Black Book was the sacred writing of Hermes on the conduct of princes, the constitution of a united world. All that remains is the chain of the Garter, with its pendant of St. George the Dragon Slayer, the white and red roses, and the motto, "Evil be to him who evil thinks," on a narrow band of ribbon. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Rosies. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.